Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to yet another edition of the show, Trek Wednesday, stardate 2016.195 at 22:09 Eastern Standard Time. I am joined here tonight by the greatest STO panel ever assembled to analyze game mechanics, ship discussions, immersion, everything that is known to be great in PvE and PvP, cheesy-ass tactics, and best of all, the spotlight on the community. We're joined here by the chief immersion extraordinaire and the developer of all things great in ship imagery, Zeph from Zeph Films.
Good evening.
We have here our chief of ultra cheesy tactics, although right now he's been playing fair, so we kind of wonder what's going on in his head right now. We have Captain SOB.
I consider the phasers, just so cheesy now. Hello.
And we have the head of the Grumpy Intelligence Agency, known in Section 31 as, oh heck, it's him, Admiral SarcasmDetector.
Greetings.
That's the grumpy guy that we know and love. Our chief ironic medic is dealing with a medical emergency right now. Something about Bolians, Tholians, Tribbles, and cats. I don't know what the heck it is, but we got the message. Mikey, stay strong out there. We'll catch you up on the flip side. Going over to the top of the hour here, and the main point in the discussion for tonight, the Temporal Queues. Sarcasm here has put out a nice video with us all going through the Temporal Queues, giving the ins and outs, tactics, and the rewards here. And you know what? You take this over here, because this is your baby. We all contributed to it, but you were the prime on this one here. Please, bring us in with this.
All right, so we did a little bit of testing the other day on the elite versions of the queue. So the Battle of Procyon V and Days of Doom of Days, whatever it's called. They're actually fairly interesting queues, I find. I think we all agreed that they were pretty nice, interesting. Battle of Procyon V was a little bit repetitive, but that's fine. I mean, there are some tactics that can be used there. Seemed a little bit strange that the aggro mechanics didn't work out too well in there. I mean, we tried to get aggro, but I think it's like fighting Tholians. They just, the NPCs use Fa and spread so much. That, and on Elite, they will throw all kinds of sciencey, gimmicky shenanigans at you. You will be controlled, shut down, thrown around, not able to move, not able to activate anything at all. So that was quite interesting. The Days of Doom, while an interesting and fairly tough map to play, ended up having some really, really crappy rewards. I mean, it took us, 3 tries to actually manage to complete it? And after, 15, 20 minutes spent in that map, we ended up with a grand total of 45 marks. Absolutely fantastic.
Now, mind you, you probably wanted to give the criteria for that, because the starbase was still saved. We succeeded in the map. The Doomsday machine was blown up. We didn't have any failed conditions that we've seen. So everything checked off. We got that little of a reward. So something's really wonky here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could have done a little bit better. Maybe stopped the doohickey from reaching so far along its path, and maybe stop this or prevent the starbase from taking so much damage. But it's one of those things. I think this game or this map is balanced around maybe normal or advanced and not balanced for elite. because really it's next to impossible to slow down the Doomsday Machine that much or prevent the damage to the starbase. I mean, we were throwing lots of controls. We had grav wells, I had the projected singularity, we had TBRs going, we had everything, just to control. But just so you can wrap your heads around it, I mean, like immediately on the first spot, we jump in and we like pretty much insta vape that first wave of attackers on the server or on the that was attacking the starbase, and the starbase still took about 20-25% damage. So I think there might be a dot, some kind of damage that's just constantly applying to the starbase. I don't know, it's a little weird.
On top of that, not being able to heal the starbase, even at a penalty, it seems kind of weird. Now, I understand if that's the difficulty factor in Elite, okay, I might be able to swallow that pill. Just make sure that any damage sources that are going to hit the starbase are actual valid damage sources, and not the starbase will take damage whenever a mob spawns.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. The Battle of Procyon V is probably the only queue worth it to run on Elite because it does actually give some decent rewards. It's just repetitive. The Days of Doom is not worth it. I mean, maybe we need more power creep. Maybe we need better tactics. Maybe we need a very specific type of build to improve it. Like, for example, how No Win Scenario was set up. Maybe we need to do quadrant defense, just like in No Win Scenario, and have burst type builds set up. I don't know. We might have to play around with that one a little bit more.
I'm not entirely sure. I mean, the starbase dropped, like 10% right off the bat, and we killed that entire enemy group in, less than 5 seconds?
If that.
Yeah. It was pretty much an insta-vape.
Yeah. Just a few things need to be tuned in there.
More than a few things, I believe. The rewards should be a little bit better. Although I did say it might be tuned around advanced. We heard that advanced is no better. Someone tried the advanced queue and got about 15 marks out of it. So, yeah. While we're on the subject of queue rewards, why the hell has Viscous Cycle and Vault Ensnared Elite not been fixed yet?
That is a good question.
So this is just, is it just, release something then abandon it? The devs release these elite contents and then just kind of wash their hands and move on to making more content? I don't know.
Are there any pros to either of these maps here, as far as the design of it, the mechanics, what's interesting, what's not?
They're both pretty interesting. I like both those maps, apart from the little bit of a reward deficit on Days of Doom, and the fact that Battle of Procyon V is a little bit repetitive. Although it's repetitive in a way that it gets harder each time. I mean, like the first time you go through the phase 1, it's fairly easy. It's like a cakewalk, even on Elite. Second phase is a bit harder. By the time you get to the third phase, it's really, really difficult. Wow, it looks great, by the way. Both of them look pretty good. Although there's that 2-dimensional sprite in Days of Doom, which I find I don't really like that 2-dimensional sprite of the shipyard.
Yeah, I felt that was kind of lacking too. I mean, it looked pretty from afar, but when you got up close, it kind of like, yeah, that two-dimensional sprite wasn't there. I don't know. It kind of left the feeling like it was just rushed out the door instead of properly built.
It's very possible that it was rushed. But who knows? I mean, what are you guys' opinions? I mean, you ran it as well. You were with me. What are your guys' opinions?
I think that both queues were fun. They were a nice challenge. My issue was with Battle of Procyon V, where during the elite runs we did, the second and third phases, as soon as you would kill stuff, it would respawn in with AoE and made it nearly impossible to get someone to close the portals. Like, Odin kept getting shot at, even though I was pulling threat.
Now, I understand there is an AoE component to it, like some of the ships, they fall, they throw a grav well, Tychon's Rift, they have some sort of, it appears to be a 5-click radius or 3-click radius field of some sort. But when you are completely out of all of those, and when you remove all of those from the equation, and you start closing the portal, and at 90 some odd percent, when that thing is there, if anything so much as even look at you, not touch you, not shoot at you, just look at you, suddenly progress bar's gone. So if you're targeted, boom, it's gone. Even if they're out of range. That's a problem. I think that needs to be addressed. Procyon 5, or Proc 5 as I call it, is kind of, it just feels redundant. It feels uninterestingly redundant. If there was some other mechanic that involved, where Captain Spec would be and they could do some sort of enhancement with it, or run a couple things here and there, different mechanics, something like Undine Assault mixed in with Proc 5, mixed in with another element of, Days of Doom, then I would find that much more interesting. Randomize a couple elements in there. Keep it fresh. Not this, here's a bunch of mob spawns, vape them all, close the portal, you're done. Whoop-de-doo. Now, Days of Doom, minus the issues there, I found that to be very interesting. Because I could bring the same team in there, and like one instance I'll be a runner, the next instance I'll be a star-based defender, and the next instance I'll be a core defender. And it stays interesting. And then you can actually say, okay, you know what, let's do this faster, let's do this better, let's try and make sure the starbase doesn't get touched at all. We can challenge ourselves within those type of mechanics. And you can see the results. They're tangible, they're fun, they're interesting. Like, we could do better next time, we could do this. That's fun. There's variety in it. There's a bit of an element to challenge yourself in there. And there's multiple roles within the team play that says, look, each person here is going to have to carry their weight. You can't carry somebody through this. Zeph, what do you think?
I haven't played them, so I have no opinion.
Well, definitely, if anybody out in the audience has their opinions, please leave them in the show comments, whether it be on the Reddit thread, in the video, or on the forums. Let Cryptic know what you think about it and what you feel about it. Be constructive in your opinion, but let them know. Because, hey, you're the ones that they're trying to cater to here so that they can make bank. So tell them how you feel. Again, be constructive about it, but let them know. Let them know up front, and don't be afraid to do that cordially but directly. Now, kicking on to round 2 here with this sucker. We have a bit of a tip here for those folks who are wanting to find the temporal probes and are having an issue with it. SOB, please lead us in on this one.
So, KonaAddict posted on Reddit a very nice chat command you can put in to locate the temporal probes on the map. It only works if they're within about 80 meters of you, but it's pretty handy, especially with how they're randomized to spawn in some cases.
And what's the quality of life improvement for those folks who don't know?
Instead of zigzagging across the map searching, you can just type in the /target temporal probe, and it'll target it for you so you'll see exactly how far away it is. It just makes life a bit easier when doing all these missions.
And thank you, Talon, for typing that out there as well. Go ahead, Zeph.
That command only worked for me if I got out of like shooter mode, like when you press B, so you can move your mouse around freely. That's the only time the command would actually lock onto the probe. If I was in shooter mode, it wouldn't lock onto the probe at all. It would just it would lock on for a quick second and then go away. So you might have to be out of shooter mode for it to work. I don't know if it's different person to person.
Yeah, some people actually do like to play in shooter mode because it tends to give them a bit more immersion. Or even in this case, I believe there's a bonus on the ground for if you go into shooter mode, correct? Like a damage bonus?
I believe there's something that gives a damage bonus for it.
Not the shooter mode where you zoom in kind of thing. Like, I believe the button that you press is B. Like if you need to go to like the free up your mouse so you can open up like the dilithium exchange, for example. That mode you have to be in. I don't know what the hell it's called.
Yeah, we do need to get a ground pounder on here every once in a while just to educate us on this fun stuff. I don't know. Who can we bring in here? Kanga? Exactly. Anyway, moving along. I know that Salami Inferno had put out a tweet saying that some of the costumes would be fixed soon. Trademark. We would like to inform Salami Inferno that there are other costumes, specifically ship costumes, that do need to be addressed as well, such as the core or the Constitution costume, where it would not stay and maintain itself after you visit the bridge. Now, we're going to get specific examples of those posted in the show notes later on when they have images or video or the whole 9 yards. But at least the core, that's a known issue. If you're going to address the issues with the costumes for the ground, please also do so for the ones in space. We've already linked a thread beforehand that was tracking all the space costume issues that are there. But some of the more glaring ones, like you can't equip it at all, even though it's been advertised that you should be able to, I believe that should take precedence. If you're going to deal with ground costumes, let's also deal with the space costumes as well. Please and thank you. One slight suggestion that we've had here beforehand, where especially now with the new gear that's being pushed out, and a lot of the basic loadouts that are coming with all of the, that are, no, not coming, sorry, that are always on these ships anyway when you get the ship. And new players who know nothing don't want to research it because they want to try and figure things out for themselves. I'm thinking, I possibly could make this work here if the game supported it. Well, how about we make a change so that the game can actually support it? For example, if we have players who are running beam arrays, a dual beam bank, a single cannon, and a dual heavy cannon, we would look at that right now and saying, as the game exists right now, no, there's nothing that will buff all of those weapons equally. Except for, I don't know, if you had them all as like anti-proton, wouldn't they all buff anti-proton anyway? Right?
Yes.
Right. So, but if you had, like, say, for example, Terran Task Force, and then the Terran Task Force dual heavy cannon, you had the Terran Task Force, sorry, the Terran Task Force beam array, the, what is it, Iconian beam array, and then a couple other crafted, like say coalition beam arrays over there. You can only go with either a plus beam to boost the beam weapons, but it won't touch the cannon ones, or you could go with a plus disruptor that would help boost the disruptor ones, but won't boost the AP one, or that sort of thing. So something's going to lose out there, and I understand it's an opportunity cost, but for a lot of players who don't understand that, but they're being told get this, get this, get this, and get this, they're not seeing the whole picture. So we're going to have to educate them in that respect. I was thinking maybe let's just turn the question on its head and say, well, we have stuff that are plus beam and plus cannon. Could we merge those two and then call it plus energy for the consoles that would boost energy weapons? And then by that extension, we have stuff that are plus Torp and plus mine. Combine those and make them plus kinetic. That way, whenever we have things like this Chronoton torpedo that comes out and people want to use it in all firing modes, you don't have to say, ooh, I like the cluster mine effect, but I got nothing that'll boost that. So change the console to be able to use it to boost that. You're still going to pay that generic effect tax, but it'll still boost the weapon properly. Same thing for those who want to run the Terran Task Force beam array along with, like, say, anti-protons. That's the best beam in the freaking game, but it's not going to get boosted by anything if you're boosting all your anti-proton damage. So why not just have a plus energy and then boost that with it as well? And if you wanted to mix a dual heavy cannon in with it, you can for a specific effect. Like if you want to have a rapid trade on there or something, because somehow a game mechanic says this will reward you if you keep this in here. Crickets.
I just think anything to buff mines is just a bad idea. You should just remove them completely and get it over with. Then you only need the plus Torp consoles. That's the best solution.
Now, funny you brought that up though, because if we did that, based off of that logic, then the trait that would allow you to create a mine once every 20 seconds whenever you use fall or CSV, that should go away as well too, right?
Well, I mean, if you use it, you basically get nothing out of it. So if they remove it, I don't think it'll be performing any differently than it is now.
True. And what about this new Chronoton torpedo that they have from the Temporal Rep? You fire it in high yield mode, it flies to the target, it stops, and then deploys a whole bunch of mines that take 2 seconds to activate before it hits the target, and is not being boosted by anything if you're running a whole bunch of torps.
That sounds like a terrible torpedo.
I mean, it would be great if it was a salvo torp like some of the other Chronotons when they fire it under high yield, wouldn't it? Because then you can actually get the bridge officer cooldowns and the turn off of that.
They should design every torpedo to be like the gravimetric, the enhanced biomole. Everything should be performing at that level, okay? I think you agree.
I think what?
I think you agree that all torps should be as powerful as the biomolecular.
The biomolecular isn't so much powerful as it is useful. Because if you have a torpedo that is going to fly, even with the current flight speed as it is, if that torpedo can fly to the target, not be shot down, and have a blast radius of 3 kilometers, that's a pretty very useful torpedo, because you're not going to have enemies shooting that thing down. And even with the temporal spec, which is a segue on this conversation, but even with the temporal spec, boosting these slow rolling hit points with a little bit of defense and a little bit of hit points, it is still completely useless. It's about as useless as having falls generate mines once every 20 seconds. I still think, though, I mean, you're one of the more prominent members of the Kinetic community. By the way, thank you very much for joining. What is your opinion about these slow-rolling torps that are not being used because they're getting shot down constantly? Especially in a map like Procyon V. Well, what's the time to live for any target over there that doesn't have a ton of hit points on Elite?
I haven't taken any of those torps in there. The only torp I've used in there is the Kelvin torps because they look pretty when they fire from the Vengeance.
Well, this is true. This is very true. I actually have to say, good job in making them look pretty. Yeah, they are nice.
But as for how other torpedoes perform, I don't care about the other torps. When all I need for like CCA is the enhanced biomole and then a high yield and a concentrate firepower, you just slap that on basically any command ship and you mount CCA. It's all you need, Odin.
Except when you become Vel and then just go with a straight temporal spec, just wrecking CCAs at this point. Gravel everything in, use a lot of the temporal spec abilities to just pretty much dot the thing up, dot the Tholians, and then enhance the damage that way so you can start wrecking 500k CCAs in about, what, 18 seconds or less? Congratulations, Vel. But yeah, that brings it back over to that point, though, that you have 1/3 of your class of torpedoes not being used in the game because the mechanics are so far outdated that it renders them useless. Same thing with mines. Like, mines is just further down the track of being forced into obsolescence. Yeah, it's great when people can use them. They'd be fun and all, but when you really want to start getting serious in all the other queues, you can't. You can't because of some outdated, archaic mechanic. But going into the temporal spec, what do we see here that is a big standout as far as this temporal spec in its performance? We said it before on the show, and based off of the work that Darth Proteus has been putting into it, this looks to be and is science redone. What do you guys think about it right now as far as the temporal spec and its performance?
I love it.
Yeah.
It's good. It that's what it is. Basically, it's an extension of the science profession. It is basically science profession 2.0 is what it is. And pretty much everything in the spec synergizes so well with anything to do with exotics. So if you have anything that, will buff anomalies, for example, like Gravity Well and Tychon's Rift, it will also buff or affect Timeline Collapse. If you have something that boosts exotic damage, it will buff not only, the stuff you get from science, but the stuff you get from the spec as well, from the temporal operative spec. It just works so well with each other.
Now, is this to the point here where we are seeing for this spec that people will start moving away from Intel primary into the temporal primary and then probably using strategist as a secondary?
Yeah,
I foresee that, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
There's a lot of nice things that help tax with this that are pushing that right now. Fluorine had a nice write-up on STO builds for it, but if I recall, Happy was doing some testing. The Entropic Rider, it's actually triggering the firing cycle haste on the T3, which is pretty handy. But the main benefit out of this entire spec for me is the continuity. It acts somewhat like Invincible. I've actually been dropped to under the 10% and managed to hit a GDF right before it triggers, and then it instantly gives you that 50% captain ability cooldown reduction. You just have to be quick hitting your GDF. So I really like this tree.
Oh yeah, that ability, like I've taken off invincibility in favor of that. The and passive, it works great. I like it.
Now, with one of the abilities, I forgot the actual name of it here, but it's the whenever you have it on the target, for the next 5 seconds, it'll do X percentage of damage to that target based off of all the other damage you do within that 5 second window. That seems to be bloody freaking amazing. It's the temporal equivalent of Omega Kinetic sharing. And Proteus will, once he hears this, he'll probably tell me the name of it because it just escapes me for right now. But that just seems to be the biggest puncher out of that entire suite of abilities. At least in my opinion, I could see that as being the biggest puncher right there. The problem is you need to find a ship that would have, at the very least, a lieutenant commander or commander bridge officer slot in order for you to be able to use that. But that tree will enhance everything off of science and temporal abilities to the point where you are just triggering all sorts of haste and damage boosts just by putting a dot on a target that lives a long time. I mean, for you guys, it's great. For the Kinetic community, haste is doing jack and squat for us. But I see this as being very good for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, just firing that entropic dot will give you haste. So just, fire your beams, you get haste. Awesome. I love it. Also, that entropic rider. Oh, that entropic rider. Sorry about that.
Yeah, you know what? You might need to clean yourself up a little bit there.
So basically, you take that spec, you have 10k free D.
You keep cutting out.
Yeah, Cam, it seems like you're self-muting yourself every once in a while. Something that Proteus just brought up here. He's using the 31st century 3-piece console set off of the ships, the timeline analyzer, the M6 computer, and the plasmonic leech, and the rest is AP TAC consoles. And he's been seeing a lot of results with a fresh AOI tune. He's been getting a lot of killer results going through it in the usual benchmarks. And it's been very, very well as far as its performance. So pretty much at this point, Cryptic has sold a lot of power creep on this one. If you have the time to save up for it and do it, yes, go get it. It is worth it. There is one major issue right now here that Proteus had brought to our attention, and that's dealing with the M6 computer itself. You find it on the Tier 3 Fed ship, but if you are not Fed aligned, you cannot get this console. You just can't. I think that's a slight oversight right there that should be fixed soon, right, guys? Really? Really? It should be fixed soon. Because if it's not, you're literally ignoring a whole side of your player base right there and saying, yeah, we want these consoles to be able to be interchangeable between all of your tunes. But it's not. And there are quite a few people who have a lot of KDF alts that they play around with every once in a while that would like to be able to use this. So, please, oversight, let's get it fixed.
So the M3 computer has to be added on to the list of consoles, or any of those low tier ships, the tier 2, tier 3, whatever, tier 4, should be added to the list of drops from the box itself as well.
Maybe it should be patched.
Yeah. Am I still breaking?
Yes, you're muting yourself again. Well, while we're waiting for Cam to finish that up here, I just want to thank the Science Channel boys and girls over there for putting out a video. And it is in honor of a fallen comrade. They have a 4-man science-only run for ISA. A lot of people will say, yeah, that's nothing new. I mean, we've done solo ISAs, whatnot. This is something that's actually very interesting because not only for the sentimental value that they're doing this for a comrade that is not with us anymore, but the way they all coordinate which abilities to use and when. This is more team coordination, using science abilities only to be able to finish off the entire mission. No weapon activation at all, straight up science only, and they handle business there. And I think it's worth a good look, at the very least, to be able to honor one of their comrades. So we'll include the link for that in the show itself, the show notes itself. Birthdays, we definitely have one major celebrity birthday that a lot of people know and love. Sir Patrick Stewart. Happy birthday to you, good sir. I believe he is 76 years old and still kicking very strong. Now, Cam, whenever you are ready, if you want to handle the rest of this here. Mic check 1, mic check 2. You can't see what I can see?
I need like a minute.
There you go. All right. In the meantime, for those folks who've already went through AOI, please let us know exactly how you feel about it. Good, bad, ugly, indifferent. What is good, what is bad. Again, be constructive in your criticism. We can be critical. We can demand more from those who are actually programming the game, or any game for that matter, not just STO. But we need to be both reasonable as well as come out with a more constructive mindset and being able to say, all right, this is wrong. Why is it wrong? How can it be fixed or improved?
All right, let me see. How's this audio now?
Good, good.
No choppiness, no muting, unmuting?
Negative.
Okay. So, what, are we at the science and space section already?
We're already at the science and space section. Yes, sir.
Wow, it's going to be a quick show tonight then. All right, so I have 2 articles for you guys in the science and space and tech area here. The first one is telescopes have for the first time spotted the water snow line in a protoplanetary disk around a different star. What that is, like new stars, basically fresh stars, have a disk of gas and dust around them, and there is water. I won't say water vapor, there's water there. Now, close to the sun, it's basically in its gaseous state. There's a certain line called the water snow line. Usually it's only about 3 AU away from the sun, so 3 times the distance between, or 3 times the distance of the distance between Earth and the sun, where it is. So that's really hard for us to actually to see because it's at the distance and its proximity to the sun. There is a star whose name I can't quite remember. It's like what, V833 Orionis, something like that, where the star itself has flared up due to infalling gas hitting the surface of the sun, and that flare up has caused the water snow line to get pushed out to about 60 AU, which is about roughly the orbit of Pluto. And for the first time, scientists have been able to detect it, or detect it with their telescopes. So this is a first, and this gives us a fascinating clue into how solar systems are formed. Very interesting article. I do recommend you check it out. Of course, any article that I'm reading out here, I'm like recommending it to you guys to check out, read it in detail. And the second article here is about how supernovae might have influenced life here on Earth. So, scientists have detected or found evidence of a couple of supernovae that happened relatively nearby to us within the past few million years. And they believe that the radiation from those supernovae, or the increased amount of cosmic rays, radiation, might have very well influenced evolution in the past few million years. So the amount of radiation that was hitting the Earth was, approximately about the same as a CT scan. So it doesn't seem to be that much, but it lasted for hundreds of thousands of years. So it would have also affected, sea life as well as life on the surface on land. Interesting article. Again, highly recommend you guys read about that if you are interested.
Thank you very much. The first article definitely is going to be something that will pique my interest and the interest of any person who eventually will start trying to explore interstellar space to try and find an area that will probably be prone for life. Because as far as we are familiar with, wherever you find water, you find a propensity for life. And water pretty much should be abundant throughout the galaxy because hydrogen is the number one element that we see out there just in sheer number count. Oxygen is not that far off. And you just need a little bit of energy in order to be able to combine both hydrogen and oxygen to make water. So you should start seeing that fairly abundantly throughout the galaxy. And when we start seeing large amounts of it in these water ice bands around a system, we should then say, okay, you know what? Here's probably a location that might harbor life in some fashion. So we should probably be able to investigate this. Whether it's we turn our telescopes to it now and keep looking, or in a couple hundred years from now, we actually start sending ships out there to start exploring. This is something that would be fascinating now. So that way, this knowledge now will help us plan for the future later and say, here, places of interest to start looking at, go over there, report to us whenever we come, whenever you find something good. Any closing remarks, gentlemen, before we go back in game and hang out with peeps over here and, discuss everything either about AOI or building up new tunes?
They do have another patch coming up in the morning, so I don't think they have much in there, just fixes for the mission that broke with the patch earlier today.
And some back-end server-side fixes as well?
That wasn't mentioned, but I assume that they will do so.
It's not listed on the patch notes. It's
not listed on the patch notes? Okay.
Just the issue being resolved for tangled webs and where your temporal characters could not skip the temporal front mission.
Appreciate it. Zeph, are you on vacation or you got something cooking up in the works right now as far as new eye candy for all of us to enjoy?
No, I'm just chilling, relaxing. Nothing planned yet.
Yeah. You did some good work, man. You do need the vacation, so you earned it. Oh, by the way, congratulations on getting a whole whopping, was it 10K now? Or 11K? Views on one of your ships?
Yeah, 10K view on the Kelvin Connie video. That was pretty cool.
People are liking it, man. Keep up the good work. Well, that's it for us for tonight from the show. Thank you very much, panel, for coming on here. Thank you, audience, for showing up. And, we're going to actually, Sid, real quick, we're going to actually go over them in detail. We're still doing some testing on them as well. There are excuse me, there are some folks from both the Science Channel as well as the Agronauts that have been running through some numbers with them. And we're also, some of us are devising our own little test to see exactly how they would perform under less known, less obvious circumstances. And once we have everything compiled together, we're going to put it all in one nice little package and then deliver it on the show. So stay tuned. You'll get that information out. And we'll see everybody out there in game. Go have fun. Be nice to each other. And if you got a troll, troll with a smile. See you in game.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.